All right, so you think about making a move, and Keller, Texas has caught your eye. It is one of the most popular suburbs in North Texas, but is it a right fit for you? Let's find out. In today's video, I'm going to be breaking down the top 5 pros and cons of living in Keller, Texas, and you'll know exactly what to expect before making that move. Now, whether you're relocating for work or looking for great schools or just searching for that perfect suburban vibe, Keller might be on your short list. Stick around because I'm going to walk you through the good, the not so good, and a few things that might even surprise you. We're going to get after it right now. All right, if this is your first time on the channel, you'd like to know everything about Fort Worth, Texas and the surrounding suburbs, such as Keller, Texas, then subscribe below and tap the bell for notification so you'll be the first to know about the current market in Fort Worth, Texas. My name is Tommy Dyer with Move to Fort Worth, Texas. Been in real estate here over 20 years. My team and I love helping people make that move to Fort Worth, Texas, whether it be 9 days, 90 days, or 9 months. Feel free to give us a call, shoot us a text, send us an email, schedule a Zoom with us, and we'd be happy to help you make that smooth move to Fort Worth, Texas. All right, our first pro of living in Keller, Texas is the wide variety of homes and price points. Whether it be your first home or you're ready for a custom home, Keller definitely gives you those options. They have starter homes, from the high 300,000 to the low 300,000 range. But if you do get a home in Keller for that price range, most likely it's going to be an older home, probably going to need some upgrades, some renovations. But sometimes we're fortunate and we find one of those hidden gems in a neighborhood that everyone overlooked. On the other end of the spectrum, you do have the multi-million-dollar homes with the big lots, the open space, that privacy, and a lot of times, they'll actually come with a lot of acreage. I'll tell you one thing I really do like about Keller is the balance of the neighborhoods. You have the well-established neighborhoods with all the character and charm of that neighborhood, and then you have the master plan communities with the modern homes, the open floor plans, the low maintenance. So whether you're upsizing, downsizing, or you're just starting out, Keller does give you the room to grow within the same city. For example, say you buy a home and a few years down the line you end up buying another home. Typically, you can buy it within the same type of neighborhood, and that's something special about Keller. It kind of gives you that flexibility to move up without moving out, which a lot of suburbs simply do not have that. The bottom line about Keller, Texas, it has homes that fit a wide range of budgets and lifestyles, and that's why it's our #1 pro. Another big reason people love moving to Keller, Texas is the excellent public school system. About the schools, we always refer back to niche.com and greatschools.org. Definitely want to check those out before you make that move. But Keller schools are definitely high rated. They're an overall A-level rating with niche.com. But within this Keller school city limits, there's only one high school. It's called Keller High School. There are other high schools with the Keller Independent School District, but they're on the Fort Worth side, kind of the west side of the Keller city limits, but they are a part of the Keller Independent School District. But if you want Keller High School, you most likely the kids that live in the city limits of Keller are going to be going to that high school. But there are a couple exceptions. A couple neighborhoods feed into Carroll Independent School District and also into Northwest Independent School Districts. Another great thing that people love about living in Keller, Texas is they do have an elementary school, they have an intermediate school, and they also have a junior high school. The elementary schools are K through 4th, the intermediate schools are 5th and 6th, and the junior high schools are going to be the 7th and 8th. So it does give you a little more of a breakup with the schools in Keller, and that's one of the big reasons that people love moving into Keller, Texas is the schools. All right, another exceptional thing about living in Keller, Texas that most people don't expect is all the green space. There's over 26 miles of hiking and biking trails, and these are not your typical, bike paths or walking paths that you see in neighborhoods. These are full out biking trails and hiking trails all through Keller parks, and they actually follow along with the creeks as well. And it's perfect for anyone who wants to stay active without ever leaving Keller. And then you have one of the other biggest outdoor draws, which is Bear Creek Park. It's one of the favorites in the area for locals, but it has shaded, paths to walk, open spaces, playgrounds for kids. They even have pavilions for family outings. They definitely have like a sporting fields for those events. And then you have Keller Point. It's the rec center for Keller, Texas. It's not your typical gym. It has indoor and outdoor pools. It has water slides for kids to have a lot of fun. They have fitness, training. They have strength training. It's actually in the heart of Keller, Texas. Very affordable, very family friendly. And while Keller, doesn't have its own large lake, there are good big lakes that surround Keller. They're pretty nearby. Just going, 16 minutes going southeast, you have Grapevine Lake. If you go, down south to Arlington, about 35-minute drive, you have Lake Arlington. And then if you go, southwest, you have Eagle Mountain Lake, and it's about a 25-minute drive. So whether you love fishing, kayaking, or spending weekends out on a boat, those spots, definitely give you a quick access to the outdoor and a lot of fun on the water. From the trails to parks to weekend lake escapes, Keller has it all. Another big reason that Keller is such a popular place, and that's location. You got this small town vibe with a quiet neighborhoods and community events and just a real sense of connection to Keller. And you're only about 20 to 30 minutes, from your Fort Worth to South Lake to Arlington to the Dallas-Fort Worth Airport. So, it's close enough to everything and has an easy commute, but it's far enough out where you don't have the, the traffic and the noise of the living in the city. And for travelers, it's a big plus. You're only about 20 to 25 minutes to the Dallas-Fort Worth Airport. So it's definitely a big plus for the travelers. Then you have Old Town Keller, one of my favorite spots. This is actually where Keller started back in the 1800s as a railroad stop. Yep, a railroad stop started Keller. And then it now has become this beautiful walkable streets, charming shops, cozy restaurants, have events like concerts. They have farmers markets on the weekends. It's really become a really great local hangout as well. Then if you're looking for a little more, you have South Lake Town Square, which is, it has the boutiques and it has the restaurants and have events year round. And if you're even looking for even more things like, concerts to pro sports, roller coaster rides, just going south to Arlington, Texas, you have AT&T Stadium, which is home of the Dallas Cowboys. You have Globe Life Field, which is the home of the Texas Rangers. Then you're going to have Six Flags, and then you're going to have the roller coasters, and then you're going to have Hurricane Harbor, and many more attractions there. So you kind of get that peaceful everyday living in Keller, but you're never that far from the real action. And I think that's why this makes Keller location such a big win. All right, let's wrap up the list with a pro that might not be even obvious until you actually live here, and that's how well connected Keller really is. On a map, it might not look like the most central spot, but once you're here, you realize just how many flexible routes that you really have. For example, if you're heading into Fort Worth, Texas, just a straight shot on Highway 377, or you could jump over to I-35W, and there's traffic involved. There's normally traffic during peak times for sure, but there are plenty of side streets and alternate routes that you can get you around without too much of a hassle. And compared to some of the nearby cities that just rely on like one or two highways, Keller offers a lot more options. Whether you're trying to reach South Lake, the Dallas-Fort Worth Airport, or downtown Fort Worth, and the airport's only 25 minutes away, so it's super convenient for those business travelers or just a quick getaways. It's just not about also the daily commutes either. Whether there's construction or bad weather or just a lousy day of traffic, those extra routes definitely make a real difference that Keller gives you that flexibility so you're not just kind of stuck sitting there. So whether you're commuting or just want to be near the action without actually being kind of in the middle of it all, Keller's road access makes day-to-day life a whole lot smoother. All right, so there's just a few of the top reasons why people love living in Keller, Texas. But of course, no place is perfect. So now let's just flip the script a little bit and talk about a few things that you might want to consider before making that move. Here are just a few of the cons of living in Keller, Texas. All right, kicking things off with a con that could be a deal breaker for the night owls out there. If you're looking for the late night energy and live music, or the busy bar scene just around the corner, Keller most likely is not going to check off, that box for you. It's definitely a quieter, more laid-back suburb that tends to wind down early, especially on weeknights. Most places are shutting down by 9 or 10 o'clock, and it's definitely more family focused and really early evenings than really nightlife. That said, you do have Old Town Keller, which is one of my favorite places to go in Keller, but it's a bit of an exception. It's got the nice little pocket of local restaurants, wine bars, breweries, spots, just with a relaxed out atmosphere where you can, grab a dinner and drinks with a friend. It's not wild by any means, but it would be a good local hangout if you want something just kind of casual and close to home. But the good news is just around the corner, a short drive, you have much bigger and larger entertainment scenes, whether it's live music in Fort Worth, you have upscale dining and sitting in, South Lake, or events in Grapevine. So if you're wanting that quiet place to live but still like to go out now and then, Keller definitely gives that balance to you. Another possible con is you're not getting the big city dining and retail scene here in Keller. Most of the restaurants here are franchises. Kind of think of like Chick-fil-A, Whataburger, Cane's, Chicken Express, and there are also plenty of Tex-Mex as well. So if you're looking for that high-end, steakhouse or that sit-down type restaurants, you're probably going to Fort Worth, South Lake, and even over to Grapevine. Now, be fair, South Lake Town Center is just about 15-20 minutes away, and it has everything, from upscale restaurants, name brand, retail, the boutique shops, and it's not far at all. But here in Keller, it's more about the casual eats and, just the convenience. There are a few local gyms out there, such as Old Town Keller. It has a lot of charm with some of the wine bars and independent spots. But overall, Keller is more of a laid back and local, more than fancy, diverse when it definitely comes to food. When it comes to shopping, you'll find grocery stores, pharmacies, and a few small retail shops out there. You also have Tom Thumb groceries. But for that big Target run or mall style, shopping, you're heading to Fort Worth at the Lions Center. You're heading to South Lake. But it's a trade off. You have less hustle, kind of a more hometown feel here. But if you're dining and retail variety are really high on your wish list, you definitely want to plan on, venturing out, once in a while if you're planning on living in Keller, Texas. Let's talk about another thing that keep in mind if you're considering a move to Keller, Texas, especially if you're used to, using public transportation system. Keller is definitely a car-dependent suburb. You're not going to find any type of buses run around, the neighborhoods. You're not going to see a rail station in town. So if you don't drive or prefer, public transportation, that can definitely for sure be a limiting for you. But that said, there is a bright spot. Just about 5 to 10 minutes, south in Richland Hills, you've got access to TexRail commuter line, which connects to downtown Fort Worth. It connects to the Dallas-Fort Worth Airport, and eventually links into Dallas Rapid Transit, what they call DART system. So what does that actually mean for you if you're living in Keller, Texas? It means that you can catch a train to the Dallas-Fort Worth Airport Terminal B, skip all the traffic and in the airport parking. You can take it to downtown Fort Worth, perfect for work, concerts, or weekend events. You can connect to the DART, to reach, downtown Dallas. You also have the American Airlines Center. That's where the Dallas Mavericks and the Stars games play. You have Fair Park, Deep Ellwood, and much more. You can take it there. But it's not a solution for everyday commuting for sure. But for most people in Keller, it's a solid perk to have nearby when you just want to have an alternative for flight events and city trips without driving the whole way. All right, let's talk about location. While Keller is in a great spot overall, the one thing you'll notice pretty quickly is that it's not directly connected to any of the major freeways. Now you got 377. It runs right through town. While while it's technically, I guess, a highway, it doesn't really like act like one. I guess it has traffic lights, shopping centers, cross traffic, and so during rush hour, it can definitely feel more like a busy street than it does a highway. It is a major north-south route, which means a lot of people cut through Keller, using it, and that can definitely can slow things down sometimes. If you need to get to I-35 or Highway 114 or even 121, you have to take local roads to connect. So really, depending on where you live in Keller, that might could mean 10 to 15-minute drive just to reach a freeway entrance. So if you're someone who commutes every day and really needs a quick access to the highways, it's something definitely to keep in mind. Kind of, but on the flip side of that, the bit of distance from the freeways is also really helps Keller stay quieter, less congested, and more residential, which is a big part of appeal for a lot of people that live in Keller. So really this could be a pro and it could be a con, just kind of depends on your lifestyle. All right, we got to talk about it. That Texas dang summer heat, and yep, it's real. Here in Keller, just like the rest of North Texas, those months in July and August, they can hit those triple digits sometimes, and the humidity definitely doesn't help. It's not as steamy and as like Houston, Texas, but the air does definitely get heavy here in the afternoons in those months. So a lot of people shift those outdoor plans to early mornings or late evenings. I know in July and August months, my dogs, I take them for walks, really more closer to that sunset. It's just way cooler for them and more comfortable for them and me. The good news is these homes here are built, for this. They have the strong AC systems, shady yards, lots of covered patios, and some people, of course, have pools. People do plan around the hardest part of the day, stay cool inside. And so, yes, Keller summers can definitely bring, the heat, but, once you settle in, it becomes just another part of life of living here in North Texas. And honestly, I feel it's a small trade-off for everything else this beautiful city has to offer. All right, there you have it, the pros and the cons of living in Keller, Texas. Hopefully this gave you a better idea of what life's really like to live here and whether Keller may be a great fit for you or not. While it may not be the perfect, Keller has a lot going for it, from great schools, fun outdoor living. It definitely has that small town, feel, and it just might be exactly what you're looking for. If you're thinking about, moving to Fort Worth or the surrounding suburbs, such as Keller, feel free to give us a call, shoot us a text, send us an email, schedule a Zoom with us, and we'd love to help you make that smooth move to Fort Worth or Keller, Texas.